Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Bruce from the Epic Experiments, back with another deck tech. So up to this point, I've shown you guys a lot of red-green decks, or a lot of Jund decks, or a lot of Golgari decks, meaning everyone seems to be of the opinion that I pretty much only play Jund or black-green, and with a few exceptions. This one takes us away from black, keeps us firmly in green, but we're playing... I'm not sure how to pronounce this one, but I always call her Maja, Bretagard Protector. So she's 2 green, white for a 2/3 legendary creature, human warrior. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. So she's a Landfall deck. And Maja is, when I saw her, I'm like, I need to build this one. For whatever reason, she spoke to me. She's not very popular. She's way down the list of decks, but I really like her. And she ends up being one of my more powerful decks. Very solidly in bracket 3. Can win out of seemingly nowhere, and why I probably want to show you guys this deck today. All right, so Maja really wants us to play as many lands as we can. The mana base you'll see has got lots of like Evolving Wilds and a couple of fetch lands and a couple of other ways like Selesnya Sanctuary to pick up lands and play them again. So there's lots of that in the mana base, but let's see how else we get there to play our lands in a way to make Maja make us a big wide board and then take us the game. All right, so let's talk about how we're going to make extra land drops. All right, so we have Oracle and Moldiah. So Oracle Moldiah is a classic 3 and a green for a 2/2. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. We've gotten lots of this effect recently in green, making it very, very common and very easy for us to play more of it. We have an Azusa, Lost But Seeking. So Azusa, you may play 2 additional lands on each of your turns. Between Oracle and Azusa, you're going to have lots of ways to play extra lands, and you're going to be really, really up to the challenge. Next, we have Ancient Green Warden. 4 green for a 5/7 elemental with reach. You may play lands from your graveyard. Perfect. If a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Just perfect. Okay. Next, we've got a Maraza Root Grazer. So this is a green and a white for a 2/3 beast with vigilance. You may put a basic land card from your hand onto the battlefield. So you can use it to make an extra land drop, or tap it, return target basic land you control to its owner's hand. So if you don't have a land in hand, you can pick it up, use it, tap it, and pick up that land and get the other land drop again, meaning you get to trigger Maja yet again. All right. Then we have Ruin Ghost. Ruin Ghost is another one, 1 and a white for a 1/1 creature spirit. White and tap, exile target land you control, then return to the battlefield under your control. So Maja doesn't care if it comes from your hand or it comes back into play from being exiled. So Ruin Ghost allows you to get yet again another land trigger to power Maja up. All right, then we have Roiling Regrowth. So 2 and a green, sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, put them onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. So this is a Harrow effect at instant speed. Super good card in this list. Then we have a couple of ways to get payoffs for some of those lands. So we have Kazandu Mammoth. So this is an MDFC, 1 green for a 3/3. It's an elephant with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So in the early stages of the game, if you need this, you can play it as a land. If you don't need this as a land, you just want to play it as a thumper, then that's okay too. And then we have Tireless Provisioner, which is one of my favorite cards of all time. 2 and a green for an Elf Scout with 3. It's a 3/2 with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a food or a treasure token. So this is like Lotus Cobra. It makes treasures, and this is the only mode you're picking. You're not picking the food token unless you are absolutely hard pressed. All right. So all those are playing with our lands and making sure that our lands do things. Next, with all those creatures that are coming into play and doing things like that, how are we drawing cards to make sure our hand stays full? All right, drawing our cards is super important. All right, so we have a Caretaker's Talent. This is a super useful card. 2 and a white. It's from Bloomburrow, and it says first mode is whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability only triggers once. And then for an extra white, you can then proceed to move it to class 2. Create a token that's a copy of target token you control. And 3 and a white token creatures get +2/+2. Super useful in a token strategy where you're looking to go wide. Then we have Tokasia's Welcome. So Tokasia's Welcome, 2 and a white for an enchantment. Whenever one or more creatures with mana value 3 or less enters a battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Well, since you are now firmly in the midst of playing a whole bunch of tokens, you're going to be very keen to see them draw cards. We have Mentor of the Meek. So this is 2 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. So you play a land, Maja triggers, you get their token into play, and you can pay 1 to draw a card. Next, we've got Camaraderie. Camaraderie is 4 green-white for a sorcery. You may gain X life, draw X cards, where X is a number of creatures you control. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. All right, you're looking to draw a bunch of cards off this. I know it's a little expensive. We'll talk about how we're going to defray the cost in a second. There's lots of ways to do that. But Camaraderie, powerful draw spell in this particular list. We have a Toski, Bearer of Secrets. So Toski is 3 and a green for a 1/1. The spell can't be countered. It's indestructible. Toski attacks each turn. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So the fact that this is indestructible is fine, but the fact really that you're looking for is the fact that if somebody keeps their shields down, and you just got to slip through and get one little creature through, draw a card. Maybe you draw a bunch of cards because they get surprised or get blown out or whatever. And so Toski's going to make sure you can keep your hand good and full. Beast Whisperer is another one that's in the same vein. 2 green for an elf druid. It's a 2/3. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Just good, useful card. Then we have Garruk Primal Hunter. 2 green for a 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker Garruk. +1, create a 3/3 beast creature token. Okay, we're not really looking to that one. -3, draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Yes, please. There we are. This is often 5 mana draw cards. And if you have some of your bigger creatures on the battlefield, you're drawing 5, 6, 7 cards or maybe more. Then we have Slate of Ancestry. This one is in French, so it's Ardoise de l'Ascendance. It's a 4 mana artifact. And it says, défaussez-vous de votre main, pêchez une carte pour chaque créature que vous contrôlez. So discard your hand and draw a card for each creature you control, and it's 4 to activate it at a tap. Super good card in a going wide strategy. Sorry, it's in French, folks. Okay. Now, let's talk about how we're going to get enough mana to power through all this stuff and get ourselves to be able to draw cards, make mana, and do all the cool things. We've got tons of ramp in this particular list because you're playing green, so let's get it all underway. So we've got a Mind Stone. I like Mind Stone in this place instead of a Sol Ring or something like that because you can just sacrifice a draw card. Sometimes in green and white, you lack the ability to draw cards, and so it's useful to have even as just a little bit of digging, super useful way. Not a huge winner in this list, but useful little trick. So this is my proxy for the Great Henge. I have a Great Henge sitting in another list, but this one is my proxy for it, so I save myself a little bit of money for it. But, so it's 7 green. This spell costs 1 less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Tap to add green, and you gain 2 life. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on, and you get to draw a card. So it's ramp, it's card draw, it's pumping, it's all of those things all at once. We have a Heraldic Banner. Heraldic Banner is 3. Choose a color, and then target creature you control get +1/+0, and add 1 mana to the chosen color. So Maja makes white human tokens, so this is probably going to make white for you, so they all get +1/+0. All right. Next, we have a Growing Rites of Itlimoc. Growing Rites of Itlimoc is going to be your Gaia's Cradle in this list. It's going to be, if you can flip it over, you're going to be able to use it to cast all sorts of cool things. We have a Cultivate. Cultivate is super useful. 2 and a green. Search the library for 2 basic lands. Reveal those cards. Put 1 in your hand and 1 on the battlefield. So that's going to trigger Maja. It's going to play with all your landfall stuff. We have Yavimaya Dryad. 1 green for a 2/1 creature Dryad with Forest Walk. Whenever Yavimaya Dryad enters the battlefield, you may search the library for a forest card, put it onto the battlefield tapped under target player's control, then shuffle your library. You're going to use this to go find another forest, trigger Maja, away we go. Grow from the Ashes. Another one. 2 green with kicker off 2. It's a sorcery. Search the library for a basic land card. Put it onto the battlefield. Then shuffle. Notice it doesn't say tapped. If the spell was kicked, search instead for 2 basics. Put them onto the battlefield. Then shuffle your library. So usually go in and go find 2. Triggering Maja some more. Yasharn, oh boy. So 2 green for a 4/4. So the big pig is a legendary creature, elemental boar. When Yasharn enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest card and a basic plains card. Reveal those cards, put them into your hand, and shuffle your library. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. So you're really looking to play it for the first ability, but that second ability where they can't sacrifice things is super powerful. And they can't pay life. So there's lots of decks that will pay life to their Necropotents or their all sorts of things. They can't do it. And that's terrific. This is a weird one. We have a Dazzling Theater prop room. So Dazzling Theater is a room from Duskmourn, and the Dazzling Theater side is what you're really looking for. Creature spells you cast have Convoke. So since you make a lot of tokens, you can use the tokens to help pay for your mana costs on other things. And then prop room, if you can get it there, 2 and a white for it says untap each creature you control during each other player's untap step. That can be useful. It can be super powerful. It just gives things quasi-vigilance. All right, then we have Mirari's Wake. Mirari's Wake, 3 green for an enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land produced. Super good card. Karametra, God of Harvest. It is 3 green for a 6/7 indestructible legendary god. As long as your devotion to green and white is less than 7, it isn't a creature. Whenever you cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a forest or plains, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. You cast creatures, Karametra sees it, triggers, puts land, Maja likes it, away we go, off to the races. Heronblade Elite. So this is a 1/1 1/1 human warrior with vigilance. Notice it's a warrior, could be useful. Whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Heronblade Elite. Every token that Maja makes is a human warrior. So this is going to see all those humans, and then tap to add X mana of any one color where X is Heronblade Elite's power. So this could be 4/4, 5/5, 6/6, and making tons of mana. All right. We have a Gallows Greeters. So Gallows Greeters is going to be 1 and a white 1 and a green for a 1/1. Has Alliance, so whenever a creature enters the battlefield, you get to pick one you haven't chosen this turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on Gallows Greeters, create a tap treasure token, or you gain 2 life. So again, kind of like a Lotus Cobra, but not quite. All right, then we have Catilda. Catilda is white and a green for a 1/1 legendary creature, human warlock. Protection from werewolves, don't care. Human creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color of this creature's colors. So you make a bunch of tokens, and now you can tap them for mana, because they're all humans again. 4 green-white, tap, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. In the later stages of the game, if you have just a bunch of tokens and it's hard to bust through, this can help you get going and overrun your opponent by building up enough tokens, counters on your stuff to get people dead. It's not what you want to do, but sometimes those games get grindy, right? And so all you can do is put counters on stuff. All right. Then we have a Flare of Cultivation. This is a improved version of Cultivate. You can sack a green creature to do it, cast it for free, or you can pay 1 green. And then we have Cryptolith Rite. Again, notice the theme here. We're making buckets of mana by tapping creatures to go and be able to cast more things. That's kind of the idea. All right, let's talk about how we're going to maximize our token production. So Maja is not the only way we're going to make tokens. Rampaging Baloth, 4 green, 6/6 with trample and landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, make a 4/4 green beast creature token. Yes, please. Queen Alanal of Ruadak, green, white for a star legendary creature, elf noble. Queen Alanal of Ruadak's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. If 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead. So you Maja makes a token. Alanal Queen here is going to make you an extra one. All right. Then we have Ojir Tak, Deepest Foundation, 4 white for a 6/6 legendary creature god with vigilance. If 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, 3 times that many of those tokens are created. This is like token creation gone crazy. So, and then when Ojatak dies, return it to the battlefield tapped, transformed under its owner's control. It comes back as a land. All right, we have Horn of Gondor. All right, 3 mana, a legendary artifact. When Horn of Gondor enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. 3, tap, create X 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens where X is the number of humans you control. Maja makes humans. This cares. I make more humans. All right, Avenger of Zendikar. Landfall makes a whole bunch of 0/1 plants. And then when you play a land, it puts +1 counters on each plant you control. This is a classic. You can't really go wrong with it. Scoot Swarm. So 2 and a green for a 1/1 insect. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. This goes exponential, and everyone knows it's a menace, so if they see it, they kill it. We have March of the Multitudes. We have a X green white for an instant with Convoke. Create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink. So you're going to go and tap your creatures and pay the Convoke cost on the March of the Multitudes to make this enormous on the end step before you go for your Alpha Strike. And then, last but not least, we have Parallel Lives. This one's a classic. If an effect would put 1 or more tokens onto the battlefield under your control, it puts twice that many of those tokens onto the battlefield instead. So you're going to make lots of tokens. This is going to go wide. It's going to make things super big. It's terrific. All right. How do we stop ourselves from getting run over? All right. How do we not die? Because this deck doesn't have a lot of counter spells. But it does fold pretty readily to board wipes, so we don't want things to die. So first off, we have a Sejiri Shelter. 1 and a white, instant. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. You want to protect Maja at all costs, all right? You don't want to have to replay her. Usually after you play her once, but after she starts getting more than 7 or 9 mana, it's probably too much to cast. You're probably skunked, so you want to keep her around. We've got Make a Stand. This protects your whole board. 2 and a white. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. That's super key. As an instant, that's great. We have Boromir. Boromir, Warden of the Tower. 2 and a white for a 3/3. Legendary creature, human soldier. Vigilance. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. So this is going to put really a real damper on their free counter spells. And then sacrifice Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Your creatures you control get indestructible until end of turn, and the ring tempts you. The indestructibility is what you really want there. All right. Then we've got a couple of ways to regrow some things. So regrowth and Bala get recovery. They allow you to bring things back from your graveyard. We have a Flare of Fortitude. So you can sacrifice a non-token white creature to pay it for free, or you can pay 2 white, give your creatures indestructible and hexproof. And then last but not least, if you can't use Grand Abolishers in this list, white for a human cleric. It's a 2/2. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities or artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. If you're going to go for your big turn, you can't have them mess with you. You don't run this out just willy-nilly, but you definitely save it for when you need it. Now, you need a little bit of removal in this list. There's a little bit, not very much. So we've got Realmcloak Giant. Realmcloak Giant is a board wipe on one side and a creature on the other. Planar Cleansing, board wipe. Sometimes you just got to blow up the board. I know it hurts our deck, but if we can protect our board and blow up theirs, we're probably laughing. And a Colony Ambush. It's an MDFC, but it also has a fight spell on it. Okay, let's go to how do we win the game. All right, first off, we can pump our creatures and punch them in the face. We've seen the Great Henge. We've seen Mirari's Wake. We've seen a few other things that are going to enlarge the size of our creatures. We have King Darien. King Darien is 1 white green for a 2/3 legendary creature, human new soldier. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Okay, so your tokens get a little bit bigger. 3 green white, put a +1 counter on King Darien, and create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Sacrifice King Darien. Creatures, tokens you control gain hexproof, indestructible, and until end of turn. This is everything you want to do. Makes Darien big, it makes you a token, makes them indestructible, gives them hexproof. This is all the things you want your thing to do. So it's going to help you win the game, help protect your things, help widen your board. Felidar Retreat. So 3 and a white for an enchantment. with Landfall. Whenever you play a land, you can create a 2/2 white beast or put a +1 counter on each creature you control. So if you need to, you can play a land and make your board go big. All right. We have a Champion of Lambolt. 1 green for a 1/1 human warrior. Creatures with power less than Champion of Lambolt's power can't block creatures you control. So if you can make this big, you put some counters on it, maybe you pump it up with some of these effects that are going to make it large, and then suddenly your whole board can slip by and can't be blocked by your opponents because Champion is too big. All right? Super good way to win the game. People hate it. Sometimes you just play Overrun. Overrun, 3 green. For sorcery, creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. I really want the trample in this one because you don't really get it otherwise. Trample is super key. Then we have Cathar's Crusade. This one's annoying. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on each creature token you control, or creature you control. This is annoying, but you're going to trigger it all the time. Come with an army of dice, and it's going to be one of the ways you're going to make your stuff enormous and unable to be stopped. And then we've got a couple little pump spells. Flowering of the White Tree and Coppercoat Vanguard gives your creatures +1/+0 or +1/+1. All right. But those are just if you want to beat people in the face. Can we do better? Well, I think we can. Let's talk. Devoted Druid and Vizier Remedies. This is an infinite mana combo. So Devoted Druid, 1 green for a 0/2. Tap to add green. Put a -1 counter on Devoted Druid. Vizier Remedies, 1 white for a 2/1 human cleric. If one or more -1/-1 counters will be put on a creature you control, that many -1/-1 counters -1 are put on it instead. So you tap Devoted Druid, and then you put a -1/-1 counter on it to untap it, but the Vizier Remedies goes, nope, we're not putting counters on it. We're just going to get it back, and you can keep tapping and tapping to make infinite green mana. Okay, what are we doing with infinite green mana and a board full of creatures? Well, you have Shalai, Voice of Plenty. So now you're going to put an infinite number of +1/+1 counters on your stuff, meaning you can now overrun your opponents and kill them. Or you can play Tyvar, the Pummeler. Tyvar is 1 green for a 3/3 legendary creature elf warrior. Tap another untapped creature you control. Tyvar gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. And then 3 green creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So these effects are going to allow you to make infinite mana, pump your board infinitely large, and win the game. All right. The last, certainly not least, we have the ways to go tutor up our win. So we've got tutors, and we've got win conditions. The first one is going to be our Demolish Your Spawn. 5 green for a 7/7 enchantment creature horror with trample and haste. As Delirium, whenever Demolish Your Spawn attacks, if there are 4 or more cards types among cards in your graveyard, other attacking creatures get +4/+4 until end of turn. So you can turn your white tokens into 5/5s or bigger if you have Delirium. It's not a surefire bet, but looking around at the list, I have found you can do it fairly readily. And then the other way is our Craterhoof Behemoth. So 5 green, beast, 5/5 with haste. When Craterhoof Behemoth enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. So we have a whole bunch of creatures. Craterhoof's going to see them all, and they're all going to get trample and enormous, and they're going to win the game for you. Well, how do we make sure we find those things? This is where this deck kind of feels kind of unfair because of the fact it's got tutors. All right, first things first, Worldly Tutor. This is like something should be on the Game Changer list, but it's not. Single green for instant. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, shuffle, and put it on the top of your library. So, if you're going to go for your big turn, you March of the Multitudes, make a whole bunch of creatures, and then tutor this up just before your turn to go and draw your Craterhoof Behemoth and win the game. Traverse the Ulvenwald. Single green for a sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. It has Delirium. If there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, instead search your library for a creature or land, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. You're going to go find the Craterhoof Behemoth. All right, it's just unavoidable. You're going to go get it. Then we have Court of Calling. X green with Convoke. And since you have 1,000,000 tokens, super easy. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana X or less. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Yes. So you can go find your Creator of Behemoth at instant speed. Sounds good. Or you could just natural order it. 2 green. Sorcery, as initial cost, sacrifice a green creature. Search your library for a green creature. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. You're going to find your Creator of Behemoth. All right. So let's talk about this deck, because this deck fits in chapter 3 or bracket 3, but I would argue has got a number of things that abuse that whole concept. All right. So the first thing is the tutoring. All right. There's other tutors that are in the game that are on the game changer list, but these two aren't. And I really feel like they should, because natural order means you can go and get Creator of Behemoth far cheaper than you could normally. All right, so you're sacrificing some terrible green creature, even if it isn't that terrible. But like if you have to sacrifice your Azusa or your Oracle of Moldiah, it's done its job. The job is done. Now it's sack fodder, and you're going to go get your Creator of Behemoth. That's going to change the game dramatically. All right, everyone is talking about how game changers change the dynamic of the game in a significant fashion. Natural order does that. Worldly Tutor has other tutors that are similar to it in that same cycle on the game changer list. And again, I feel like it's way too efficient at finding a creature that's going to win you the game. The last one is Creator of Behemoth. And this one absolutely should be on the game changer list in my estimation. People, if you don't agree with me, you can make a comment down below. But this thing, people will play your deck differently if they know you have a Creator Hoof in your deck. If you're a token strategy, people need to know that you have a way to win, but there's a million ways to win. Maybe you sacrifice things, maybe you mill them out, there's tons of ways to do it. But Creator Hoof definitely changed the equation of how people approach you, because they're looking at your board and they're always got to ask the question, is Creator Hoof in their deck? And if they know it, they will kill your board, they will deal with your stuff, they will make sure that you are addressed. If you're just pooping 1/1s onto the board, you may find yourself that you surprise a table and get them unawares. So I really do think that this should be on the game changers list, because it does change the game in a marked fashion. And if people are not aware that it's in your deck, they play you differently. If you don't believe me, try it. Next time, build a new deck. Build a token deck. Don't put Creator Hoof in it. Tell them that you have a Creator Hoof, but don't put it. See how they play you. See how they approach you. They're going to treat you different. All right? All right. Now, there's a few other pieces in this deck that I would love to find that I haven't got yet. Like a Lotus Cobra obviously fits in here. The loot from Foundations, Intrepid Explorer is super good because it makes your land drops. There's lots of other cool tools that you can put in here to play this deck. But this deck packs a serious punch, and it's unassuming. It's a little on the slow side because Maja is a 5-mana commander, but super good deck. Was one of my staples now since Kaldheim came out, and I have still played it to great effect to this day. All right, so that's the deck. The list is in the show notes down below. You can look and see the list, see the price total. It's not a cheap deck. There's enough expensive pieces in it, but I would not say it blows the bank, breaks the bank either. It's definitely something that if you are prepared to play tokens, this is what you do. All right, if you like the deck or anything else we do, please check out our other deck techs here on the channel, or you can follow our podcast in the podcast app down below, or on your favorite podcast app, wherever you enjoy that. As always, please like and subscribe. Any little bit helps to make sure that we get our voice out there a little bit further. We're looking to hit 50 subscribers. We got 40 right now. We'd love to hit 50 before we get to the end of April. That'd be a tremendous goal for us. So please help us out, like and subscribe. And otherwise, thanks very much, folks. Have yourself a good night. We'll talk to you soon.